Okay, welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel. I'm H.M. Hart. In this video, I'm going to answer a question from a commenter. A question asked often by men who are either in relationships with somebody with BPD, well, a woman with BPD primarily, but could be a same-sex partnership, but primarily women asking this about borderline women. So the question is, do they ever attach to anyone, or do they attach to some more but less of others in their romantic relationships? What if the partner is good looking or is financially stable? Are they more likely to stay longer? Well, unfortunately, first of all, no, they never really attach in their significant other relationships. They don't attach to friends either. This is untreated people with BPD, right? Because there's a vast spectrum of people with BPD, some more affected, some not as much effective, and then that broader sort of percentage of people with BPD that are in the middle, that not top of the spectrum, more severe, or bottom of the spectrum, not that bad, so to speak, but there's a big chunk of people with BPD, or the majority in the middle, who are, it is what it is, and you see the patterns, and it's the repetition compulsion patterns and cycles within BPD. But then again, I just want to break it down to say within that percentage, to keep it real here to help you heal, to keep it accurate here, since other channels are like, woo, gotta keep it accurate somewhere. Sorry, I'm not that entertaining or whatever, but like I'll try to keep it real for you. So anyway, yeah, you have to remember, some people with BPD are getting treatment. Some people with BPD have healed and recovered, and yes, that's possible. And if you don't believe me, please do the research, but don't just listen to some other YouTuber who says they'll always be splitting after 10 years of therapy and they'll always be the same, because it just is erroneous. And if they don't like my saying how wrong they are so often, why don't they do something to educate themselves? Just saying. Not to pick on anyone. It's all about the information. That's it for me. So anyway, untreated people, this was my response. Untreated people with BPD do not attach to any partner, right? They don't. And if somebody is more good looking or, more financially stable, well, you'd think that would matter, sorta, but then if that was the reason why they were staying with you, how satisfying would that be in its totality? Because I think people really want to be seen for who they are and loved for who they are, right? So, whether you're extremely good looking or fantastically attractive or very wealthy, financially stable or very wealthy, women with BPD tend not. Now, a narcissist might glom on to that, but you're still going to suffer. And women with BPD in particular, in answer to this question, but I think it's the same with, well, no, never mind. Women with BPD, you'd think that they would value those things, and yet for all the vilification of them out there, most of them, not all, aren't that surface, number one. Number two, that's not like, oh, so they have this idealistic quality and, that's why they can't attach to you. No, that's not what I'm saying. Because actually, they don't have the rationality, which is a good thing, really. Or they could be really calculatingly, more capable of being more calculating than they really are. Because they're so full of emotional reactions and triggered dysregulated emotion and emotionality and magical thinking, which, by the way, isn't thinking, it's feeling what they feel is real. So even if a man is really exceptionally attractive or super good looking, if there's a difference there, I'm not sure, and or financially stable and or even wealthy, the person with BPD is not applying logic to the situation. And more to the point, they can't stop the triggers that are inside of them from their past. They can't stop being triggered. So that repetition compulsion, which some people like to say, and it's been said on comments here is what I'm referring to, some people like to call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's not incorrect to say that, but it's not really a self-fulfilling prophecy in those with BPD who are untreated, because they don't have a self to fulfill a prophecy from, if you know what I'm saying. So it is more to the point, the repetition compulsion cycles in untreated people with BPD, women specifically here I'm talking about in answer to this question, that even though you might be extremely good looking and maybe very financially stable or even more wealthy, they can't stop the repetition compulsion cycles. And as I said in a video a few days ago, which, if you haven't checked it out yet, BPD relationships begin to end. And when do they begin to end? They begin to end in the beginning. So right when you get in that relationship with an untreated person with BPD, or a woman in this case, but it's the same with men really with BPD for women or same-sex partners. The thing is, as soon as the relationship starts with the person with borderline personality, and you don't know they have it, but you don't know what's going to happen, and you might not realize you have codependency either at that point. But as soon as the relationship begins, it's starting to end. So that's the other thing. There's no logic or rhyme or reason to what so many untreated people with BPD will do or why they leave. Because here's the main message here. It's not about you. So it's not about how handsome or attractive are you. It's not about how financially stable or wealthy are you. It's just, for them, they don't really see you and they don't really hear you. And they're just full of, the way people with BPD confuse need with love. It's all about their needs. And so in that emotional whirlwind of lack of logic, because they don't have emotional intelligence unless they go get, significant treatment, which is like 8 to 16 years if they want to be on the healing recovery journey that people can take, and by the way, can finish. And I'm living proof of that because I am a healthy person. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. So, they don't really value much about partners because they're merging for identity. They're wanting to have self mirrored back to them that they don't have a self. This is why if you don't agree with them on one thing, like that could be a big, not what you did, but cause them a trigger, a huge reaction. It's like nothing happened here. But nothing has to happen in here now for them to be compelled to the protective repetition compulsion cycles that they're just knee-jerk kind of unconsciously following. So, and then I said, good looking and financially stable to an untreated borderline doesn't make any difference because they're, like I've just described, so emotionally overreactive, sensitive, fear of abandonment, rejection sensitivity, etc. And they're so defensive. And it's really the defenses, because these defenses were formed in infancy to early toddlerhood to survive. But then when people get older, so not necessarily grow up, see, emotionally, but they get older, they get smarter intellectually, people with untreated BPD, women in this case again, they don't have any ability to, then those defense mechanisms that were for survival become maladaptive as soon as you kind of hit adulthood. And like I've said in other videos, I'll talk more about the right fighting against that reality and how that keeps people, so many people with BPD, from actually seeking therapy or enough therapy, because enough therapy is a long-term process and not just DBT. But anyway, back to the rest of my answer was, each untreated person with BPD and their own repetition compulsion will only last as long as their own personal cycle will allow. So there's a vast range here. There are some people with BPD that stay in relationships and marriages, some women and men, but some women for 5 years, 10 years, 7 years, 20 years. And it's more in the older generations probably, where it's been 20, 25, 30 years worth of marriage. And those are usually with quiet borderlines, and it's not usually as rocky. People may know something's off, or some people really have these long-term relationships with people with BPD and their codependency, and they don't work, but they don't do this final splitting to devaluation and ghosting, because not everybody with BPD does that. So I think that's another really important thing to think about. It seems like the younger they are, or even 40s and below, but the younger they are, the more this is happening, and what the influences are on that. I'm going to have more coming about. But so, yeah, just know you're not really being seen. So if you're pretty good looking, very attractive, or more, and you're financially stable or you're wealthy, it's not going to hold. It can't hold a woman with BPD with you longer, or the next person longer, because I've had so many clients where their ex left them, and they're reasonably good. Like sometimes, I see them on camera, or, they send pictures or whatever the case, and of themselves and other things they want to show me about the relationship or the ex, and all of which is highly confidential, by the way. But many clients I talk to are extremely good-looking men, and that's not me, saying anything on a personal level, but it's just the truth. And the women with BPD are often very attractive, their exes, and or if they're still with a partner trying to struggle through things. And it just doesn't, things that should matter, not just attractiveness, or financial stability, but more to the point, who you are as a man, as a person, right, as a partner. They can't get there because of the fear of abandonment, the approach avoidance conflict, and the reality of the emotionality and the triggers. So if they're untreated, and the other thing is, why do I say that as soon as the relationship starts, unbeknownst to people, in this unconscious setup? Because the person with BPD doesn't know this any more than the codependent can know this at the beginning of a relationship. The relationship begins, and also the beginning of the ending is starting. And that just speaks to the repetition compulsions, the inability of people with BPD untreated to attach, and they do not love you, and they do not receive your love. And so splitting and devaluation often has very little to do with, like, they do not receive your love. And it's not even necessarily just how they might feel, like if they even are on the same page. But so what I'd like every man to know today that watches my channel is definitely it wasn't about you. And definitely there's nothing that you could have done more about. Whether you're someone who's not the most attractive man in the world or not financially stable or not wealthy. But see, it doesn't matter either way or the other. And I think I was going to say, I've had clients who have reported that, their ex, when they got ghosted or discarded, or sometimes relationships break up the other way around. People break up with the person with BPD, but when they monkey branch to the next person, I've had lots of clients who are, like I said, really attractive men, really doing well financially. And the ex with BPD will go hang out with some guy who's practically homeless, has no money, and has a drug addiction problem. See, there's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. And there's no rhyme or reason for the people with untreated BPD, because they don't know what they're doing either. So it's really important that men realize it just has nothing to do with you. And unfortunately, so much of the relationship has nothing to do with you, who you are, or being seen for who you are. So don't let the end of it, make you feel bad about yourself. Like, what people need to do in starting to heal and recover from these relationships, which I'm out here to help you with that and then some, if you resonate with me, is learn how, and I teach clients how to do this in the process, learn how to start, not depersonalization, but separating out what you think is so personal. Because with people with BPD, repetition compulsion cycles mean these unconscious patterns of protection that they will repeat and repeat and repeat. And the triggers that repeat and repeat and repeat that they're not even consciously aware of if they're untreated. So nothing is going to interrupt that. So just know it's not about you, and know there's nothing you could do, or no amount of money you could have, or fantastic looks or muscle up or, make yourself even, more attractive to the average woman, there's nothing you can do to keep the untreated borderline woman with you longer. And even if you could make something work that lasted a week or two longer or a month or two longer, you're headed for the same inevitable relational rupture. Because that's what happens to people with BPD when they're in infancy to young toddlerhood. And that relational rupture is part of that repetition compulsion. So they are destined to blow up every relationship they have unless they get treatment, except there are some who do it differently, and they don't have that, splits of devaluation leave you. They could split to devaluation often, but then they'll come back to a baseline, maybe not idealization, but people sometimes have these relationships last longer. But that's really just about the severity of the adverse childhood experience of the person with BPD and their own patterns of how they manifest all of their interpersonal, emotional, lack of self difficulties. So I hope that was helpful. Take care.